Hello friends, welcome to Colombia. Today, my wife Katy and I are in our 32nd country, and we are today starting off our series in this beautiful botanical gardens here in Colombia's capital, Bogotá. This place opened in 1955, and there's over 20 acres of plants and gardens and rose bushes and so much to see here. And even for foreigners, an entry ticket is less than $2 a person. It's one of the best deals we've ever come across. Arit.
Somos de Miami. ¿Ustedes de Miami? No? Okay.
Normally, when we visit a country, we do a lot of research, we have everything planned out, and I feel pretty confident in saying we're usually ready to go when we hit a new country. Unfortunately, we had a couple of weeks and we had a lot of things that we had to get done. Not a lot of fun things, a lot of tasks, a lot of assignments, a lot of things we had to check off the list, really around adulting. So when we were coming here to Colombia, we were looking for a place where we can get a good deal on a flight and on our lodging. So our flight was one of our first flights ever completely covered by credit card points, which was awesome. And then when it came to our lodging, we had a really good deal. I think it was like $400 for the 3 weeks that we're going to be here, and you really can't beat that. The flight from our house in Florida to Bogotá was about 3.5 hours. And we can get into Colombia visa-free, which is nice, but we forgot our MIG form, which is some sort of immigration form that we had to fill out. But luckily at the JetBlue counter, he said we can just fill it out online. It just takes a couple of minutes, and that was the only thing we had to do.
¡Qué hermoso! ¡Ay, qué chévere! Ahora sí quiere uno sin la gorra.
Estamos despeinados.
Ok, una más. Ok, ¿listo? Ok, gracias. Ay, gracias.
As full-time travelers, you would think we'd be super excited anytime we can board an airplane. Unfortunately, I'm a pretty nervous flyer, and even though the flight from Florida to Bogotá was only 3.5 hours, there were certainly a couple of spots with some pretty rough turbulence. So I was definitely praying to God for a smooth flight and smooth landing. Obviously, we're here, everything worked out fine, but man, I hate turbulence while we're in the air.
Okay, where is it? I don't know where it
As we arrived to Colombia, there was one of those electronic signs coming from the ceiling area that said getting through immigration or customs would take about 45 minutes. So we're like, ugh, that's not ideal, but whatever. We went into line and there was plenty of border officials. So even though they said it would take 45 minutes, it only took us about 10 minutes to clear customs, immigration, everything. It was very smooth. And they didn't ask us a bunch of questions. I don't know if that's because they saw our MIG form in the system and everything was good. They saw how long we were going to be here, where we're going to stay, where we're from, etc. But very smooth, no questions asked, stamped our passport and let us on into the country. Once we got in, we got our bags safely from the carousel, went to an ATM to get the money that we needed for our first couple of days here in Bogotá, and then we started making our way to our accommodation here in the city.
As we walk around the garden, we're going to share with you some of our thoughts of Bogotá so far. We've actually been here for a week, and so we have so many stories to share with you, and we're going to give you our first impressions of this country. In order to get to our apartment, we needed to get transportation there. So we could have taken a taxi, but of course, like everywhere else, we try and take the local transportation. So beforehand, I read that you can pick up your local transportation card, which is called tu llave, which means your key, at a kiosk in the airport. And I asked around, and this guy that worked at the airport, super sweet, was like, yes, mi amor, it's right over here. He pointed me to the direction of the kiosk. It's like a green kiosk, and I just walked right up to it. There was a line, but once I got to the front, I just confirmed how much the card was, which was 7,000 Colombian pesos. We were able to top it up with more money, and I confirmed with her if 2 people could use it, and she said yes. I also wanted to confirm where we could add more money, and she said any of the main bus stations on the metro line, like the metro bus line, because you have like the local buses, which we took to get to this spot today, but along like the main highways, there is a metro bus which doesn't stop as much and doesn't get trampled up with traffic, and those are the bigger stations where you could top up your cards. And then I also had to ask her about where we could find the bus routes, because I had read online that Google Maps wasn't very accurate. So I said, hey, I read the Move It app is where we could find the routes, and she said yeah. So I had all my questions answered. But to let you guys know, the Google Maps seems to be pretty accurate. Like, I've been double checking that when I checked the Move It app, and it all seems to work out pretty well.
It's 6:21. Hey, they have a giant Florida Panther here. Feels like we're at home. When we were exiting the airport, there were so many different buses going, like tons of them from all different directions. Everything was color coded. There was this nice color coded sign so you can see what line you need to take to get to what part of the city that you need to get to, which has got to be super helpful because there's over 11 million people here in Bogota. It's luckily for us, we've been able to travel a whole bunch, so it's not the biggest city we've ever been in, but it's definitely pretty large. And when we walked out, there was all these different buses, but Katy did the research to figure out which bus we need to take to get to our apartment. They're putting a lot of effort into keeping this park beautiful. Oh, the joys of trying to vlog in public, but at least everything's nice, pristine, green, gorgeous, so I'll take it. Even though our goal is to be able to persuade, to urge all of our friends and family to go out there, travel, at least see something, get a passport, go explore, we usually are pretty unsuccessful with that. Since that's not something that we have a huge success with, it is nice when we're out and about and we can talk to other travelers. While we were waiting for our bus, we talked to a guy who is originally from India, from Kerala, God's old country, place that was really good to us on YouTube, so that's always nice. And he was doing a work assignment somewhere in the States, and he was just here taking a little bit of a break in between his work assignments. So we talked to him about traveling and seeing the world, and he brought up a really good point. As Americans, we're blessed to be able to make a good amount of money, even if you're like a teacher or you don't think you get paid enough. On a global scale, even if you're making 30 to 40,000, you're rich according to the global standards. And we have a pretty good passport, so we're able to travel all these different places visa-free. But most Americans, they don't take advantage of it. And he's like, man, if I had a passport like that, I'd be traveling all the time. So it really puts things into perspective. And that's one of the reasons why we would like to travel so much. So eventually our bus showed up. We got onto the bus, the same one as our new Indian friend, and we were able to use our transportation card for the first time. Katy was able to swipe herself in, and these are different for us because there's actually like a turnstile that you have to walk through. So it was a little bit more difficult with her pregnant belly to get through that. And it was impossible for me because I had our suitcase. So the bus driver had to open up the back door for me to be able to get in because I couldn't go past the turnstile. We paid for our tickets and our rides, but it was a little bit of a difficulty to get in for the first time. When I was walking in, I had my headphones around my neck for some reason and they fell off, and then the bus door closed. But one of the gentlemen who worked at the airport was able to pick that up for me and slide it in through the window for me so I didn't lose my headphones, because that would not be so best if I had to go 3 weeks without being able to listen to music or podcasts or anything like that. But we got on, safely seated into our bus, and got to our accommodation pretty smoothly.
Where am I? We reached our apartment and our host was there to welcome us with open arms, literally. She was very welcoming. She showed us around the whole apartment and some common areas. She even had exercise equipment. And mind you, again, this was like $400 for 3 weeks. It's a great bargain. We're not staying in Centro, we're staying a little bit north of it, but we're with the locals and we've been exploring the area. And I gotta say, like, everybody that we've met so far in Colombia is very, very kind. For example, this scarf that I'm wearing, one of the first days we went around and walked to the local market to get groceries, and we passed a couple of sports stores, and Will is in search of his local jersey, as he does in every country. And we stopped by one store just to get the price, more or less what it would cost, and then we're like, okay, maybe we'll pick it up later, also because they didn't have a size. But then we went to a different store that we saw on the way home, and we were peeking in just to see if they were going to give us the same price as well. And it was a dad and his daughter working the little shop, and walked in and went ahead and asked, like, hey, how much are the Colombia jerseys? And he told me a price. It was higher than the other one. I think he quoted us like 70,000 Colombian pesos instead of 40 like the other guy did. We're like, okay, great, thanks. We're gonna go ahead and just maybe come back a different day. And as we were about to walk out, he's like, oh, where are you guys from? And we're doing this thing where we're not telling people we're from the United States, because I'm speaking Spanish to them. So we're telling them, hey, I'm from the Dominican Republic, so that way, you know, maybe they won't overprice us on things and they can give us like a good rate, thinking like, oh, okay, they're from another Latin country, cool. So I said, yeah, I'm from the DR. And he's like, oh, awesome, here's this gift. And he hands over this scarf. And I was like, no, like, it's okay. And he's like, listen, I want to give you a gift. You're visiting my country. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. He goes ahead and pulls out a different jersey that was the size, a little bit bigger than we were looking for, but he's like, hey, I do have this size, and I'll give this one to you for 40,000 Colombian pesos, which is about 10 bucks, and that was the original price we had heard at the other shop. And I look at Will and I was like, okay, we gotta get it. Like, this guy is super kind. He gave us a free scarf, and he's just trying to make a sale here. So we went ahead and bought it, and as we're buying it, we're just talking, and he's telling me about things that are around here. Just very excited to have somebody visiting his country. And so this is a scarf from the local soccer team here in Bogota, and then Will did get the jersey that you've been seeing in the video, and that's the soccer team for the country. As I mentioned, I've been able to speak to people in Spanish, but I will admit my Spanish is not as strong as obviously like locals who speak it every day. So it's kind of broken, and anyways, like, you could hear my dialect is different than the local people. So I'm sure they can assume we're not locals, although I am speaking Spanish, but it's okay. But I will admit my Spanish isn't the best, even though I was raised like learning both languages. My family is from the Dominican Republic, and I haven't practiced it as much, so it is kind of broken, and it takes me a minute to like remember words. Granted, I say I can barely speak English, but anyways, that's a different story. Regardless of that, the locals realize, okay, she's not a local because her Spanish does sound different because it is Caribbean Spanish instead of from here. But regardless, they're very accommodating and very, very patient, because we went to a little local spot for lunch, and it's definitely, all the locals come in here. It's a really great price of like only 10 Colombian pesos for a lot of food. And this was the first time we were trying to figure out this whole lunch deal, and I'm asking the lady at this restaurant like so many questions. So like, what does it come with? Like, I was not understanding that you just have to pick a side and you pick your meat, and then it comes with all these other things. And they were kind to substitute the meat for eggs for us because we don't eat meat. And then on top of that, I go and order a juice because I wanted like one of the natural juices. So she adds the natural juice to our ticket, to our bill. But then she comes and brings out natural juices that come with the meal. So like, I completely missed that. And so I felt like I was just a chaotic mess. And so then at the end, when we did go pay our bill, I was like, hey, here's a tip for you, because we were being very, very difficult. And she looks at me like, at first she was shocked that I gave her a tip, but then she's like, oh my goodness, thank you. And then afterwards I told her, but next time I come, I'm not gonna be difficult, so you're not gonna get a tip. And she busted out laughing. But again, it just shows how friendly the locals are, and like patient. And I mean, there's so many more stories. Like, there's a local bakery down the road from our house that we're going to, and the lady, we've already been there a few times, so the lady's like, hey, how you doing? Like, and again, I'm asking like, what's this? And they're just very accommodating, and I'm really excited. Like, we've only been here a week, we've got 2 more weeks here, and everybody has just been very, very sweet. Like, the way they speak to you is just kind. That's not the word, like caring. They use terms, like endearing terms, like my dear, or my love, or my queen, or my king, and they just make you feel so warm and fuzzy inside. It's just how Latin people speak, but the Colombians do it even more. They seem like they just want you to be a part of their family, and it's just the sweetest thing. And I'm just very happy that they're very inviting, even to just crazy foreigners like us.
que se encarga de proteger a dignatarios del Estado y a personas amenazadas, perdió 47 camionetas el año pasado por obra de los grupos armados. 3 adultos y un menor de edad son las nuevas víctimas de la violencia en Nariño. Fueron sacadas de sus casas en Linares y
This was just our first impressions, but we're going to continue to document our journey as we explore the city over the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much for watching this video.
This is WITY Travels.
What could possibly be next?